lockdown, episode 5 already. And we were supposed to be joined by 2 surfers on this episode, but the box is firing in West Oz, and Jack Robbo is probably still getting pitted off his face. But from the other side of the Australian coastline, I have South African CT rookie for 2020, Matty McGillivray. How are you, sir?
Hey, yeah, all good. Thanks, Kai. Nice to chat to you. You're like 2 days away from finishing South Africa's lockdown. So, yeah, it's been interesting seeing what you're doing with the podcast you're bringing out. Thanks for having me on one.
Yeah, it's interesting because the lockdown is ending, but I think we're pretty much going to be staying in stage 5 or 4, which means I've just seen a News 24 piece now this morning saying that they're not going to allow beach access, and with no beach access, there's no surfing. So it's been an interesting one. Yeah, I mean, you guys were blocked for quite a while. I mean, what's it been like that side?
We've only been on it's been like level 2 lockdown here on the Gold Coast, which is nothing really. We're just supposed to keep our social distancing, not be in groups of more than 2 people. But otherwise, they're encouraging exercise here. Lots of people are surfing, probably more than usual, with a lot of people not being at work. Everyone's been like using the time to go down to the beach and surf now.
Yeah, so I mean,
it's
speaking to Geordie,
a different feeling over here.
Speaking to Geordie and Travis, like Trav was saying, for a little bit there in California, they weren't allowed to, but now they're starting to open up the beaches. Geordie and Wok, of course, have been having a great time in Hawaii, and the waves have been on there, so they've been pretty blessed. So I'm glad to hear you've been having waves, and obviously that came into your thinking of staying in Australia, was that it would be better to be somewhere where there was less sort of severe lockdown, or was it just that you actually got stuck in Australia?
No, it was actually a really hard decision to make, because I was over here with QJ, who was coaching me, getting ready for the Snapper event, and we came up to the Gold Coast straight after the first Challenger Series event. I was going to stay on the Gold Coast and not go across to New Zealand, and we scored a 6 while. And then got the news that the first event was cancelled. So like, oh, okay, well, we're going to make the most of being here, get some experience, try out boards. I mean, I have 18 boards from Graham over here with me, which I've been trying out. So that's been lacquer. But we basically heard of the news of South Africa, like lockdown was coming up, and there were only I was trying to work out, okay, QJ had to go home. I had to get him back to his family. And then for myself, I was trying to think like, I'd really like to be with my family like through this time. But if I go home, I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to leave again for who knows how many months. And I was also unsure whether the tour could still happen, if they could still like run a few events a couple months later. I didn't want to be stuck in South Africa if like things had got bad there. So I was just like, it's definitely safest to stay here on the Gold Coast and ride out what's happening here. They've got a good healthcare system, like if you do get sick. And I was just trying to think of, also like the surfing. If I went home, there was that 2-week quarantine where you had to be by yourself. So I wouldn't have been able to go straight to my family anyway. And then the 3 weeks, which turned to 5 weeks of no surfing, and I was like, I've got to stay in Oz.
Well, it turned out to be a really good call.
The lockdown's been finishing. I'm very lucky to be here. I'm very grateful to be here still, and I do like miss everyone back home. It's a weird time now, trying to figure out what my next plans are. It's kind of like felt like I was in a state of limbo almost, just playing the waiting game, seeing what's going on around the world. And I was trying to see like if it's possible for me to get home even after these 5 weeks. And like all air travel is kind of stopped around the world. There's like no international travel really. So I don't think it's possible for me to get home for like a good couple months. I'll have to wait and see. But like you said, I'm in a good place. So I can't complain to be here. very grateful to be able to surf still.
And I have to laugh because, of course, you sent QJ home to be with his family, and he ended up being quarantined with Bayrick. And
Yeah, that
shooting each
was
other with
inevitable.
Pelican.
Oh man, some of those stories, and they gave me a couple phone calls as well, so it was good to see what they're getting up to. But yeah, I mean, he was lucky because I thought he was going to have to be by himself, and then Barrick had also been stuck in New Zealand and then Sydney for a while because his flights kept getting cancelled, and he only arrived back like 2 days before QJ and let QJ jump in with him. So at least they had some companionship, someone to entertain.
Well, we talk about QJ, and of course you mentioned that you got 18 boards, Smith shapes from Graham. Let's talk quickly about sort of qualifying, because obviously it's been your dream. And I mean, I'm just looking at you now, Maddie, and I mean, I've known you since you were about waist high on me and quite thin. You're looking quite buff, dude. Like, I mean, you look like you've been training, you're pulling out, you're getting some muscle on that little wiry frame.
Yeah, I'm pulling out of this. I'm not sure if it's muscle. I actually haven't been training too much the last month, I must say. At first, like I lost a bit of motivation, like when I kind of realized we were playing the waiting game for a bit. So I was like, okay, I've got to take it easy now. And I ended up finding like I got a couple of niggles in my body, like a couple of things caught up with me just from working hard over the last couple months and not really having much of a break. Because I only got home, I had 2 weeks at home after Hawaii, and then I went back up to Durban and started training, and then stayed in Hawaii till Oz. And so it was like full on, and this year was supposed to be really full on. And I guess I didn't really give my body too much time to rest. And so now when everything stopped, I've kind of felt like a couple of things have caught up with me. I've got a sore knee at the moment, which I've been trying to get better. So I've actually been out the water for the last week and a half, just resting that. So I can't say I've been training too hard. I've more been just breathing now and trying to reset. But yeah, there's time to prepare for what's next. So there's no reason to rush into it. I'd rather do it properly.
Well, it was interesting because we, in the chat, which you'll be able to listen to tonight with Geordie and Travis and Wok, I asked Geordie and Travis, as you know, pro tour surfers, for some advice for yourself and Jack as rookies. And Travis was very forthcoming. He was like, his advice is go at it like you can win it. Like, don't be that rookie that arrives and is hesitant and holds back. Because he said he kind of was like that a little bit. Like he was checking out the scene. Yeah. Whereas Geordie, he said, came in just like, I can beat these guys and I'm going to go for it. And that was the way to do it. Geordie said he's got no advice for you guys because he needs to beat you.
Nah. Oh, it was cool getting to hang out with Geordie a bit when I was in Hawaii and listen to him chat. He's always got so much information whenever you ask him a question. But yeah, what Travis said is true, because I find with myself even, like, it's pretty daunting going from I don't know, it felt like this year was going to be such a big jump up. I was definitely feeling like a bit overwhelmed by it all, but yeah, my main focus was just going to be on working hard. And yeah, that I don't know, it's I'm still like overwhelmed by what happened at the end of last year, I guess, and like achieving this huge goal of mine. But yeah.
Well, let's talk about that, because I mean, it was going into Hawaii, you weren't really in the conversation. I think the South Africans were like, you know, he's got a chance. I mean, we were posting, you know, like if he gets the results, he can do it. It's 2 10,000s. But the mainstream going into Oliver weren't really talking about you. By the halfway point of that first event, suddenly your name was popping up in the conversation. And by the time we got to Sunset, you were up top of the list of conversation. What did it feel like going through those two events, like having that transition to not in the conversation to, holy Lord, this guy's going to make it?
Yeah, I mean, I came into Hawaii like in my own mind. I knew I had a good shot coming into Hawaii because after Europe, I was sitting 14th in the ratings. So I knew I just needed one more quarterfinal to kind of put my name in the picture, or semi to like be more sure. I knew if I made a final, I was in. And I had that pressure on myself. I knew it was a really big deal, but at the same time, I've always kind of been a bit of the underdog, so I was flying under the radar. So then the media, or I don't know, yeah, the media wasn't really putting that pressure on me. I could kind of just do my thing and not worry about it too much, which was cool.
Well, and that's quite a nice thing looking towards your first couple of heats on the championship tours. Again, you're the underdog. You're the rookie. You've got nothing to
Yeah,
prove. And hopefully you can just go with the same mindset, which is I'm going to just go out there and let my surfing do the talking. And I've got to say, I'm super depro that your start wasn't at Snapper because, I mean, let's be honest, you and Snapper, that would have been a match made in heaven. I think you could have destroyed a couple of heats.
uh, it would have been a lot of fun. It was very tricky in the free surfs. Trying to practice out there with the other 200 people, everyone behind the rock. It's pretty intense, I must say. So to be able to surf out there with two other guys would have been the dream. But yeah, the first three events are all going to be at kind of right-handers. So I was definitely like thinking that could play into my strengths. Um, but yeah, we're just gonna have to wait and see what the call is with the tour going into the back end of the year, if it
Well,
can happen. That is.
yeah, so we talk about the first three events. I mean, Snapper definitely. Bells, I mean, you're a Jbay kid. Bells is pretty much like Big Point where you grew up. I'm pretty sure you could have done really well at Bells. Like you said, West Oz, the Box, North Point, Margie's, all right. I mean, there's one left in the equation there, but it's not really the choice. Um, but then speaking to Geordie, obviously, he was like, most South Africans, even the goofy footers, like Wok said, like he preferred rights. He's a goofy. Travis was always seen as being stronger on his backhand. Paul Canning, Greg, um, Ricky. I mean, pretty much all the South Africans have been really strong in rights. And Geordie said something he's had to really look at, which was part of his move to the North Shore, was to surf pipe more, to go spend more time at like Cloudbreak back when it was on tour, to go spend more time at Chopu to get those results. Because if he wants to be world
Yeah.
champion, he needs to get a full year. And it's something Warwick and Travis spoke about as well. I mean, what is your game plan for the lefts? I mean, are you planning, for example, before Chopu to go spend some more time there? G-Land, have you been there
I
before?
mean, I haven't been there before, and that's probably the coolest thing maybe about, like, if events don't happen this year and we can still travel internationally, the plan is to put time in at these waves, which I need to put time in at, especially the left-handers, the left-hand barrel riding. And that's what it is. For us South Africans, we grew up in the land of the perfect right-hander. And so we got to go put time in where it's needed. And yeah, I'm really hoping at the back end of the year, when things sort itself out, like with international travel, I'd love to go to some of these places and try to get some experience. Yeah, especially G-Land if it's possible. Chopu's gnarly. I've been there once before, but it was only 4 foot, thankfully. But I have to, yeah, I have to experience it.
Well, I was like,
Yeah.
speaking to Travis, the first time he pulled into Chopu, he was hoping for that 4 foot day, and it ended up, and a cloud break as well. His first heat was like solid 8 to 10 foot, and you're on that stage. It's the CT. You're surfing against the world's best, and you can't exactly hold back. You got to go for it. So,
Yeah, you definitely can't. And it's all about putting the time in. Like, I don't think on that stage, I'm sure the adrenaline will make you go and not pull back, but whether you make the tube is a different story, and that's very important.
well, it was cool
Especially for the,
because you had the trip at the end of last year with Zag and Monster Energy and Berwick, and you went to I forget the name of the wave, but it was a left, and there was that one
yeah.
big heavy day. And speaking to Beric, he was like, yo, on the big heavy day, you were really like showing some class out there. So, I mean,
It
Berkey reckons
was
you've got it.
definitely not yet, but I feel like, yeah, if I have the time in those kind of ways and can like work at it, I feel like I'd be able to, I don't know, I feel like I can learn. And I mean, that day in Indo with Berg was so special. Those are like the best left-handers I've ever seen. So clean, and like left barrels is not something I see too often. So I was fighting to make the most of it. Yeah, and I mean, Berkey was getting some insane barrels. He was riding the funny thing is he was riding a 510. I was on my 6.1.5. So I had a bit of a paddle advantage there. But yeah, what a good experience. I hope we can both go back there.
Well, I mean, we talk about board lengths. Let's get to that. Equipment-wise, I mean, you've been surfing on Graham Smith's boards for a while now. Obviously, they've started the new brand, Smith Shapes, with Geordie at the helm. And, you know, I've been riding some of the boards, and I've got to say, I'm super stoked with the boards I've been getting out of that factory. Geordie's been spending a lot of time on the Smith Shapes on his own boards. And like you said, you've got 18 of them there with you in Australia. How's that relationship been working, and how are the boards feeling? I mean, they must have been a big part of your step up to the championship tour, because you were riding those boards in your qualifying year.
Yeah, and the thing about that, I mean, the last year, the first half of the year, I struggled in contests. I wasn't getting results, and then everything changed around for me in the Europe leg, and I had the best quiver I've had yet. I had boards which I was most confident on. Like every one of my 5 boards I was traveling with, I was like, this is a winner board, and that really helped me with my confidence in those events. And yeah, G and Geordie have been working really hard with the Smith Shapes to get better materials for the boards, better quality materials, and then G's always just picking up on whatever Geordie is doing or saying with his boards, and then always working on models. So it's just been constant refinements with boards. I've been working with G for the last 2.5 years, and I mean, he's helped me so much as a shaper and a mentor. He's always like trying to show me things about boards and help give me direction in my surfing career. And what they're doing with the Smith Shapes brand, they've like put a lot of work into it. And yeah, I mean, who better to have designed one of your boards than Geordie Smith? So, like, he's ridden all the waves on tour that that I need boards for. So like I can get advice from him on what boards I need. Like if I have any board questions, like he's there for me, which is pretty cool.
So, I mean, you're riding his contest shape essentially. I mean, I'm riding the slightly toned down version, which is the Matrix, which is made for us mere mortals. It's a bit more forgiving, but
that's my go-to board.
I do love it. But what's going to be interesting with the seedings, obviously, is that there is a very high likelihood that you and Geordie are going to get matched up in heats in the first sort of 3 events.
Oh, really? Oh, man. That'd be gnarly. That'd be gnarly, yeah. Yeah, who knows? The South Africans always seem to get matched up together. It's crazy. But my only hope is to, I mean, obviously try my best in whatever situation I'm put, but I want to learn as much as possible from every heat I get to surf in the CT. But that'd be pretty cool to be able to surf with Geordie, and hopefully it's in one of those 3-man heats where 2 people go through, then we can dominate.
So an interesting one is obviously, I was speaking to Mikey Febb his year on tour. I was like, Mikey, after the first leg in Australia, I was like, what's different about the QS to the CT? I mean, obviously the level of competitor is a lot higher. And he was like, the biggest change and challenge for him was the physical side, because he said you're going from surfing 30-minute max heats with 4 guys with a much lower wave count to suddenly being either 3 or man on man, 40 minutes, sometimes an hour-long heats in cooking surf most of the time, which means your wave count is through the roof and you're not always using the jet ski assist. And he said just the pure physicality for those heats is what got him.
Okay. That's an interesting point. Yeah, that's something I haven't experienced yet, but I can imagine what he's saying. Having jet ski assist is the best thing in the world. But yeah, I guess if you're surfing, there's really like these good world-class waves, these long waves, leg-burning waves. I can see how that would happen. So maybe I've got to do some more cardio training and
get onto the Tabata, dude. Tabata training, I promise you. Look at me. Look at me. I'm looking great.
Oi,
Tabata
training. Looking fresh there. Oh, what's it called? Ciabatta.
Tabata.
Ciabatta bread.
Like ciabatta, but T-A-B-A-T-A. So HIT training, high interval training, short. But I can guarantee you'll see some results. But talking about training, what I think a lot of guys don't realize is you do a lot of crazy stuff, not just surfing. And I mean, you're actually base jumping. I mean, this is something not every pro surfer on tour can claim. You're jumping off like Blowcrantz Bridge and crazy mountains with a parachute.
Yeah, it's not so much physical training. You get some nice hiking out of it, but it's definitely mental training, trying to deal with stress and feeling scared. But it's, I'm not sure. It's a little adrenaline addiction I have. It started from, skydiving, and then something my brother and I always dreamed of doing, the base jumping. And we have like some really nice places to do it when I'm back home. The Blowcrantz Bridge, we got the Finstadens Bridge. There's a little cliff behind Jbay. And then if you're ever in Cape Town, it's an absolute mecca for base jumping. So something I like to think about other than surfing, something I'd like to do if I didn't surf. I know it's risky. Like if an injury did happen through base jumping, I'd be really bummed. And so it's something I'll be careful of course. But
do you think
I got it out my system when I went home for 2 weeks after Hawaii at the end of last year, and I managed to fit 7 base jumps in. So I got it out my system, did a couple jumps. Something I look forward to when I go home.
Do you think you'd ever progress to trying out a wingsuit?
It's definitely in the back of my mind. It's got to be on the bucket list for me. I'm not sure if it will happen, but if there's an opportunity to make it happen, I think I'll probably go ahead and try. Human flights. It's the ultimate dream.
Does look crazy, I gotta say. So to finish off, we've got some questions from the general publicus, by which I mean my heinous friends on Facebook. And Dean Vincent asked for Matt, where is he staying in Australia and how is he training? I think we've kind of covered that one, so we'll move on.
Hey, Dean, you hammer.
James Morawski says, Matt, Jbay walls or pipeline drops?
Oh my, Jbay walls any day. Pipeline drops scare everything out of me. Yeah.
Now, my question is personally, because I've been back in the Eastern Cape and surfing supers a lot more, is what is your advice for carrying your momentum at supers?
It's just the line you take, and I'd say the biggest part is when you paddle in and stand up, take that first pump. Don't just drop straight down the wave. But you know how when you take up, you can get that first pump in and then drop down? That really helps with that initial speed. And once you have that initial speed, it can really like put you in rhythm with the wave. You don't want to be caught behind and chasing it the whole time. And then yeah, I mean, if you want more speed, just go to the top of the wave and be in the pocket, and it's going to give you all the speed in the world.
Now,
That's my advice.
it's been quite interesting because my first interview was Stephen Sawyer, and he did it from the balcony at the Sawyer residence. And of course, they look out over the point. And for lockdown, they've had to pretty much stare at cooking Jbay for 4 weeks. So another point to make is that if you'd come home, you would have been staring at cooking waves without being able to surf.
It would have been the hardest thing in the world. My thoughts go out to everyone back home. What a crazy time.
All right. And then speaking of that as well, is that one of your best mates, Dylan Lightfoot, Steezy, a whole bunch of other good people, Chaka and all of them, they've started the Let's Feed Jbay campaign. And I mean, doing incredible things back home there, because they've raised thousands of rands, even dollars, and are literally like handing out something like 200 food parcels a day in the Jeffreys Bay sort of poor areas.
Yeah, it's been super inspiring seeing what they've done and how they've gone about creating the awareness for this campaign which they created. Because it's very easy to ask, I'll ask you, please donate a bit of money, but how do you keep it going so that it keeps spreading and you get more people involved? And Remy was really good at doing that, and he's connected with a lot of people in the surfing community. And yeah, it was inspiring to see how they created this campaign, and first of all, how successful it's been with the money they raised, but then also with how they've used this money to okay, they got all this money, but now how they're going to feed everyone. And they've done that. They've the impact they've the impact they've had on the community is, you can't put it into words. So I wish I could be there helping everyone, but it's been incredible watching what they're doing.
All right. So on that note, I'll put the link down below for the Let's Feed Jbay campaign, something Maddie, I'm sure, is very passionate about. And as we see the sun go down on you that side,
yeah,
it's
the end of the day for me.
And it's early morning here. Maddie, thanks so much for being on the podcast. And as soon as things get up and running, I think maybe the last subject to talk about, I'm not sure if you watched the press release from the CEO of WSL last night, but looking at 2021, they're talking about a more regionalized basic QS tour, which would be, for example, for our guys, Africa, which would be the bulk of events in South Africa, Morocco, Senegal, Ivory Coast, they're talking Mozambique. And then a step up, if you're in the higher rankings in your regional tour, to the Challenger Series, which will happen before the CT starts. And then from the Challenger Series going into the CT season, which will mean that guys who drop off the CT the year before will be able to use the Challenger Series to try and bump quickly back onto the tour. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, from my side, I think it's going to help South African surfers because it's going to be less international travel to get the ranking up before you start hitting those big events.
Exactly. That makes a lot of sense what they've done, and I think it's a really good progression for the qualifying series. Or at least that's what my initial thoughts are. And how they've had the challenges, how they've put the Challenger Series to link it into the Championship Tour. So I think the Challenger Series are only over a couple months. I'm not sure if it's 3 or 4 months. So it seems like a good progression for where competitive surfing is going, and it's going to save people a lot of money, like you said. They don't have to be chasing 1,000s around the world. That's a bit ridiculous. So I'm really happy with what they've announced, and I think it's good for all of us.
Well, my man, I have to agree with you on that. And with that, we're going to say cheers to you. Really looking forward to seeing your debut on the Championship Tour. And all of South Africa is going to be behind you.
Yeah, I appreciate the support. Thanks, Kai.
Awesome, Maddie. So there we go. Awesome. That is Maddie McGillivray from Australia. And we'll catch up with him maybe a little bit later when we see how the luck goes.